population of great white sharks, and they fall within the San Francisco city limits around an area called the Farallone Islands. So a really fascinating part of the world. I've read quite a lot on the shark behavior in that area. But back to the African side of the world, and Nishant is wondering how much time does a leopard spend in a tree as opposed to on the ground? So Nishant, it's quite a big misconception that leopards will spend the majority of their time in the trees. They will spend the majority of the time on the ground. And in areas where there's not a lot of other predators like lions and hyenas, leopards will not even put their kills in the tree. They do that to protect their kills from the other predators. And the only other time that they do spend a significant amount of time in the trees is during the very hot months, and quite often there's a lot of flies around at that time, and also sort of really muggy and hot on the ground. So they tend to sometimes lie up in the branches of a tree. There tends to be a bit more breeze, and it does get them away from the flies. So most of the time leopards are on the ground, and that's how we track them. We'll look for their footprints on a nice sandy road like this, and we'll try to follow them and hopefully find the animal that's making those footprints at some point. And it can be quite difficult, and we do always try our best, but sometimes the leopards just elude us, like they have been for the last little while. We have been quite lucky with Shadow and Sindile. Nishant, if you a new viewer, that is a female leopard who's got about a year-old cub at the moment. They spend more time down in the area where James is working this morning, in the sort of south and west, so hopefully he might come up with some tracks. At the moment I'm looking for any leopard. Actually I'm looking for any animal that possesses a heartbeat at the moment. I don't think we've actually seen one yet, and you just had to listen to me waffle along. But Nishant, welcome to the live safari drive. It's great to have you with us, and hopefully you keep watching with us, and hopefully we will be able to show you some wonderful animals on this drive and the drives going forward. Marianne, welcome Marianne. Marianne from Boston is just congratulating me on my attempt at saying Zambianological agoraphobia. I'm just going to go agoraphobia, and we'll start with the Zambian and end with the agoraphobia, and I'll just make up the middle part. Thanks very much for that, Marianne. And Dr. Debbie is wondering, do I possess also a morbid fear of short animals? Well, Dr. Debbie, no, it only seems to be humans, and specifically one human in particular, and that is James. And continuing on that, Anne from Durban, welcome Anne, is saying, obviously I must find it quite difficult due to the different heights in our camp, and you are spot on. I think the main reason I have a morbid fear of short people is because I've known James for so long. I've actually, from my height, watched his hair disappear. So I think that's probably what affects me the most. When I first met him, he had a luscious full head of curly black hair, and now if he's not wearing his beanie or his cap, every now and then the sun will catch it and blind me from the shining of his bald spots. But no, I'm only joking. I'm very fond of our short people in camp, and said we've been friends for many years now, well, particularly James and myself. And speaking of short animals, and something with a heartbeat, please don't run away, please don't run away. We have, oh, you little creature. Let's go forward a bit. There is a little steenbokkie there. Obviously was not listening to my begging and pleading about running. There we go. How's that for you, Andrew? Oh, sorry, I rolled a bit too. There we go. Let's try get it. There we go. Face in the gap. A little male steenbokkie. So we actually saw a steenbok display some very interesting behavior on a sunrise safari a few days ago. I'm actually digging up tubers from the grass, and there Andrew just showed you the knobs, on a very particularly knobbly knob thorn, and it seems beset with knobs, that one. But that that steenbok was digging up a tuber attached to some grass, and living in very small territories as they do, they quite often will not have any permanent water in their territories, and they do live in quite dry areas. So this morning, I'm sure he's getting, this one in particular is going to get quite a nice little bit of moisture from the grass and the little bit of rain we've been having. But when that isn't an option, they do dig up tubers and bulbs from grasses and different plants, and that's one of the ways they get their moisture. So completely independent of permanent water. Obviously, if there is water around, they will drink, but they don't need permanent water to survive. Honestly, hopefully it'll move. I might move a little bit further forward, see if we can get a better view. Okay, let's move a little bit forward. And there we go, Andrew's showing that very knobbly knob thorn. And while we're looking at that very knobbly knob thorn, let's have a look to see how clever all our viewers are. So that is a knobthorn tree, but I'm going to ask you, what is the Latin name for a knobthorn tree? What is the Latin name for a knobthorn tree? And you can send your answers to questions at WildEarthTV or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. I'm just going to edge forward a tiny bit. I think we can get another gap. So that very, very dainty little steenbok. There we go. How's that, Andrew? Or should I go a bit further forward?
That's good.
There we go. You can see it's a little male. The horns, the females won't have any horns. Also, quite interestingly, one of the only monogamous antelopes we get out here. So they will only look for another mate if one of their mate dies. And in this area, the two animals that quite often are the ends of the marriages, so to speak, with the steenbokkies, is leopard prey very heavily on steenbok in this area, and as well as wild dog. And we did manage to catch a recording a few days ago. Unfortunately, we had gremlins in the satellites, which prevented us from showing it live, but we did record it, and we did show you guys on the highlights reel of that pack of 3 male wild dogs dismembering a steenbok in record time. I mean, we got there within 10 seconds of the wild dog who killed it calling the other 2, and that carcass was completely finished in under 2 minutes. So sometimes you're lucky enough to see both members of the pair at the same time. I have been keeping my eye out for the female, but she doesn't seem to be right here at the moment, but she will be quite close, and we might even see her a little bit further down the road. It looks like the sun is fighting through a little bit, and hopefully going to burn off some of this cloud cover so we can have a beautiful, sunny and fantastic sunset safari. Hey guys, it's just a report coming through on the game drive. I just want to listen to it. Sorry, FM, I only caught a little bit of that update. Please could you go with it again? Okay, copy, thanks. So heading towards Cheetah Cut Line, but they're still quite far. Okay, copy, thanks very much. Sorry about that, guys. I just heard a word on the radio that sort of starts me getting a quiver. and that is my Dutch, which is actually a bit of a strange word because it's not actually the true word, it's more of a sort of guiding colloquialism for wild dog. The proper word for wild dog is mashawa, but there's wild dog being spotted unfortunately quite far to the east of us and heading south away from us, back towards a property called Mala Mala, and that is where the half-tailed pack is denning. So strong possibility it is the half-tailed pack animals. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like they're coming our way. It's still nice to know that they're around, and hopefully in the near future, once those puppies become a bit older and they start coursing with the rest of the pack, they will start coming up into this area. And that's probably the best description I've ever heard of a wild dog hunting, is that they course, and they sort of spread out and course through the bushveld until they spot something, and then they just hit into that fifth gear, and they can run at an incredible speed for an incredibly long time, around 60 kilometers an hour for up to about 4 kilometers. Andrew, you spotted a track.
Elephant track.
An elephant track. I'm glad you can see an elephant track. You know, it is quite big. Sort of takes up most of the road. We are actually starting to do quite a bit of tracking training with the cameraman to add a little bit of help for us as well, and also obviously the cameramen are really quite excited about learning a new skill, and this will obviously help. And sort of what we're aiming to do is almost try get a similar relationship, which we do have, like a lot of us have had with our trackers in the past. So it is a very close team. We do work with each other at very close proximity a lot of the time, and we spend a lot of time together. So it is in that way, a very similar dynamic to the sort of guide and tracker relationship that we've had, except the main difference is our trackers could track. But hopefully we can get the cameramen up to a standard where they don't embarrass themselves. Although they have made incredible leaps and bounds already with the track identification, and it's a huge help to have the cameraman behind us, especially now while I'm talking to you guys. Andrew is keeping a look on the road ahead, and he also checking around to see if they can spot something for us as well. So it is a very important team dynamic that we work with here. So well done to Raisa, Ron, Pretty Nightmare and Bree, who got a herd of elephants walking straight towards us. Who got that question right. Oh, this is interesting. Tuskless female. Just their general, when I have to keep still here, they just don't look like they're the most relaxed. But sorry, you guys all got that right. It was an acacia nigrescens. Hello, old lady. We're not here for trouble. So now important to keep your voice calm and watch her. Quite often as an elephant walks past, there we go, you see they quite often will do that displacement behavior we spoke about the other day, when they'll walk at an angle past you. They seem to be on quite a mission, and it looks like they might stop and start feeding shortly. There we go. I'm just going to wait for the rest to pass, and then I'm going to turn around. On these strong windy days, the elephants can be a little bit unrelaxed. So we definitely, and just from the general demeanor of this herd, I'm not going to go bashing and crashing into the bush after them. I will definitely try to stay with them while they're where we can approach on a road. That means keeps our revs quiet and silent. Although some of the animals seem to be calming down quite nicely now, like this female right next to us, who's busy breaking up what looks to be a little Dicrostachys bush. Can't see exactly. No, maybe not. I'll have a closer look just now. Could be just a little bush willow. Yep, she's after the little bush willow. See how she's removed the big piece of branch, and there's only a little bit of bark left there, and she's now using her foot to try to dislodge that piece of bark. And that piece of bark is very important. That is the cambium layer. It's the part of the tree that transports the nutrients from the roots through to the rest of it. So these eddies are very highly mobile. I think they're going to pop out on the road behind us and just get a picture of that. We're going to try zoom around and stop on the road. Obviously, we'd rather let them come into our space than us forcing ourselves on this space. Just the way they're moving makes me think they were a little bit unrelaxed. I'm not sure why. It can be because at this time of the year they have to travel vast distances between food and water, so they can be a little bit jumpy or edgy. But if we behave correctly around them and we respect them, we shouldn't have any problems with them. So while we're on the subject of elephants, and I'm going to turn around to try and catch up with them, Tina is wondering, do elephants ever lie down to sleep? Well, elephants and giraffes, we'll stick with the ellies for now since we've just seen them. They do, specifically when they're younger and on very hot days. You can often find them lying down on their sides. It's very unusual to see a big elephant bull, for example, doing that, but I have seen it. But because they are so big and heavy, they normally will find a fallen down tree, or more common, a termite mound, or even a drainage line, and they'll lie on the edge so they don't lie all the way down, so they're able to get up. And I was tracking in the Wanetsi concession in the Kruger National Park, right on the Mozambique border, and I was tracking with my old tracker Glass, who I've spent many hours in the bush, and we faced some very interesting times together, and we heard this incredibly strange noise, and sort of almost like a snore but not, and both of us had spent an immense time in the bush, had absolutely no idea what that noise was. So off we snuck closer, and it was a monster Kruger elephant bull sleeping on the edge of a drainage line and actually snoring. I've only ever seen a big bull do that once. I've seen little ones do it, but never snore like that. It was absolutely incredible. It's one of the strangest sounds I've ever heard. And on the giraffe, the giraffe do lie down. Obviously with that long neck, they don't lie down flat. They will lie down on their sort of haunches though, and they do rest like that. But again, being not as big as an elephant and being a possible bull, they're moving really fast. Prey species, they are far more awake. Hello, old lady. You can see, I don't think we're going to keep following this herd. You can just see by their behavior, they're a little bit upset. She might calm down now. So, one's just run off behind us. That's fine. And looking at her, she doesn't have any tusks, and I think that is a genetic. That's not that she's broken her tusks. Sometimes elephants are born without tusks. But you can see they're just really moving very quickly and not very relaxed. So I think we'll get a picture of their bottoms, those big grey behinds disappearing into the bush, and we're going to leave them. There's no point in harassing these animals. We do have so many wonderfully relaxed herds of elephants in the Sabi Sands that if we start harassing ones that are not, it could cause them to become less friendly. So we're going to just let them move off. If they stop and decide to start feeding next to us, that'll be fine, but we're not going to go off the road at all and push the situation. So I'm freewheeling, keeping my voice very calm. You can see they've slowed down a little bit. They definitely are on a mission though. I'm not sure to where. They're stopping to feed very briefly.
Oh, strange.
Yeah, they've actually stopped to listen now. So they're on the move again. So even though they are feeding, they are sort of stopping, grabbing a bite, and then continuing on. Sometimes when you see elephant herds moving like this, they could have been harassed by a musk bull, and they might be looking for females in estrus, and none of the females are quite as receptive as the bull would like, and they can get quite aggressive and chase the ellies around and push a lot of the elephants around. So sometimes when you find an elephant herd moving at this sort of speed, they're trying to avoid a bull who's in must. For those of you who might be new or not sure what must is sort of the male version of coming onto heat and with elephants, and elephants can only really mate when there's a female in estrus and a male in must, and it's a heightened period of hormones in the males, and they can be a little bit aggressive and unpredictable at that stage. And certain elephant herds, if there's no females that are ready for mating, will try avoid these bulls at all costs. We're just going to maneuver on a little bit. They have slowed down a bit. As I said, I'm not going to bash and crash after them, but while they're walking parallel to the road, we'll stay with them. And you'll notice I'm going to try to keep my revs very, very, very low. My movement of the vehicle very slow, steady movements. We don't want any fast, sudden movements that might upset them. So they definitely have slowed down, started feeding a little bit more. Just going to mosey on up to the corner and stop and let them walk past us. Drove Mobile South, Drakensberg Road, just to the north of junction with Central. There we go. They seem a lot calmer now. Slowed down, started feeding, which probably can never be 100% sure. Definitely sort of lends towards my theory that they might be being harassed by a big ellie bull who's in must, and they think they might possibly have put enough distance between themselves and that ellie bull, but they're still probably going to keep moving for a while now, but they are stopping to feed. So as we have a look at those elephant feet as they idle on past, Juliet from Montana was wondering, what does the bottom of an elephant's foot feel like? Does it feel like leather? I think that's a very good description, but it's actually a lot softer than you would think it is. Sort of a nice soft leather, but yes, definitely does feel like leather. It's actually probably softer than the rest of the body. They've got a very, very interesting foot structure. So they've got a very big spongy pad, and you can see the toenails there, but you would be amazed at the shape of what's inside an elephant's foot. Like this little guy here. That's definitely a little boy, just by the way he's behaving. He thought about being brave and giving us a head shake, then decided it was better to stay with mom. There we go, this is a little cow. Giving us the once over. You can see that very sharp angular head, and that's one of the ways we can tell it is a female. Bulls have a much more rounded head. And I think here comes the last ellie. There's a little young bull probably around 10 or so years old. And you can notice far less angular head, slightly more rounded, as opposed to a very sort of almost triangular head of an elephant cow. So back to Juliet and elephant's feet. So what I wanted to show you is that basically if they've got 5 toes like we do, but they are like that. So they're very long. So if you ever have a look through a bisection of an elephant's foot, then they've got this incredible sponge almost, and that's what makes it so soft. That's what makes them be able to walk so quietly. Those large spongy section of tissue in the middle of that foot with the phalange. Oh no, not phalanges. Phalanges of fingers. Andrew, what are toes again? Tarsals, I think. I might be wrong. I think it's tarsals coming down, and then with that very big spongy substance in the middle, and really fascinating. You wouldn't think they would have a foot shaped like that. There we go. I wouldn't think they would have a foot shaped like that. And you can actually see the different joints and stuff in there, although they are pretty much redundant in the elephant because of the shape of the foot and with that spongy substance there. But we're going to move forward. I think the Ellies are going to head off further from the road, and as I said, they've probably been harassed quite heavily by a big bull, and that can make them a little bit aggressive and unpredictable, and there's no need for us to harass them further. Let's just make sure there isn't a big bull coming pounding along behind us. It doesn't look like it. Just see some of them. Unfortunately, I have such a vast array of books, but none of them actually have that sort of foot structure. I would definitely recommend if you guys go Google it and see if you can get an image of that, and then share it on Twitter with the hashtag Safari Live, so everyone can have a look at that really interesting foot structure in an elephant. You can see they've calmed down quite nicely now, and they've started to spread out feeding. They are going into quite a thick block, and said not the most relaxed, so we're not going to push them any further. But we will definitely watch them while we have the opportunity to from the road. So as we watch this little female utilize that incredibly dexterous trunk of hers, Josh from Connecticut is wondering, do I have any idea of the actual grabbing strength of an elephant's trunk? Josh, I don't, but I mean, if you think about the Asian elephants that are used in forestry and whatnot, they probably can lift close on 500-600 kilograms, and the African elephant is bigger and stronger, so possibly they could do more, but I'm not 100% sure on the grabbing strength of an elephant's trunk. But that's a really fascinating question. If anyone can find any information out there on the grabbing strength of an elephant's trunk, please send it to me, and you can do that via email to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So those Ellies are disappearing off into the bush there, and Patty from Washington has reminded me that apparently I started telling a story about one of my worst experiences with elephants, and then the gremlins took over. I think it was this particular gremlin that did that. There we go. He seems to be quite active on the gremlin front. I think he has something to do with the satellite issues. Yes, Andrew, I think one way we can get rid of the gremlins, we can get Andrew to eat them at some point. I think it'll be quite amusing. But Paddy, I'm not 100% sure which story it was, I'm afraid, but I will tell you guys some of the stories. So probably the two places I've had the most scary experiences with elephants have been in northern Botswana and in southern Tanzania. When we first moved into the Kwando area in northern Botswana, it had been a hunting area for a very long time, but also the fact is that there were very few people that ever went there. So for 7 months of the year, 8 months of the year, there were no people. So the elephants were not used to vehicles and people at all. So they could be quite aggressive when we first came across them. After a few years, they were completely fine, but very much like the elephants we see in the Sabi Sands now. But we did have some very close calls with Ellies in those early days, and I was fortunate enough that my dad trusted me enough as a teenager to take a vehicle and drive around the middle of the bush by myself. So I think possibly one of the worst elephant experiences I personally had. I used to do the drive from Maun to the camp, which is about 250 kilometers, but because of the roads and the very thick sand, it would often take you up to 9 hours to do that, and most of that sitting in low range second gear, doing not much faster than we're doing now in really thick rutted sand, so you didn't even have to touch the steering wheel. I actually used to take a book with me, and while I was on the old Tetsi Fly cut line, which is basically this straight road cut through the Mapani fault in very thick sand, you could let go of the steering wheel, just keep your foot a little bit on the accelerator and read. And doing this road at night during the summer months was probably one of the most scary, because we weren't shining spotlights and whatnot. We were on a mission to get somewhere, and you're basically just going straight like this, and you've got your headlights, and you generally have a pile of paraphernalia behind you, staff rations, food, gas bottles, drink, and you've got this pile of stuff behind you, so you can't really see. And we take the rear view mirrors off those cars, because driving down those little Mapani cut lines, the rear view mirrors get smashed in a matter of minutes. So off you go, driving happily down at about, I think it was about 9 o'clock at night. I think I left town quite late that day, and all you can hear around you at certain points is just this blood-curdling screaming and trumpeting of elephants, and you can't see them. And I do remember once, all of a sudden, this elephant just came out of nowhere, and she must have stopped about 30 centimeters from my bonnet, and I reacted by stopping the car. And quite often a hat like this is very useful, and I did have a hat sitting next to me, so I was banging the side of the car, shouting at the top of my lungs to try to get her away. And eventually I did take my hat and I threw the hat at the elephant. And quite often something like that, even though a hat's obviously not going to hurt the elephant or whatnot, it just gives them a fright. It sort of shocks them out of what they're doing. So a very important tool in the bush is a hat that you can fling. And we can actually do a practice fling here. You can pretend the elephant is coming at us, and I'm shouting, stop, stop, stop. I don't think she's going to stop. So I fling the hat. That wasn't the best throw. I didn't go fetch my hat, but even the movement of the hat could be enough to distract that animal from its aggressive charge. Now I'm going to go pick up my hat. That was quite silly. Now it's full of dust as well. Unfortunately, not much sun out today. But another very scary elephant encounter that didn't actually happen to me. It happened to Norman, who used to work for my dad. He was one of the first guides up there, incredibly experienced, worked for Natal Parks Board, worked all over Africa. And a young elephant had died during the dry season, a baby from probably malnutrition. The mother probably wasn't in the best condition when she had it, and it does happen quite often there. I mean, in a game drive in that part of the world, on average at this time of the year in the dry season, you will see between 1,000 and 1,500 elephants every game drive. You actually get elephant traffic jams while you're trying to get to the lions. Like, oh, lions, oh, another herd of elephant, oh, another herd of elephant. The distance between the two camps was about 40 kilometers, and my record, because of elephant roadblocks, was about 4.5 hours, what normally took us about an hour. But Norman went to go check on this. They'd seen this elephant carcass from a distance, and the cow had been around, and she was really, really aggressive. So he stopped for quite a distance away, and every day they went back to check to see if the lions or hyenas had started feeding on this elephant carcass. And after about 4 or 5 days, they went there and they couldn't see the female elephant anywhere, so they decided it was safe to go have a closer look. So as they got up to that elephant, and I just remember this is really incredibly thick sand. You can't drive fast in it. If you can do 25-30 kilometers an hour, it's a lot. And we approached up to this baby elephant and stopped next to it, had a look, and then out of the Mapani's burst the elephant cow. She had obviously gone off for a drink and was still guarding the carcass, and she came charging up to Norman, and he had Italian guests who spoke almost no English, and the elephant charged up to the front of the vehicle, charge. As I said, Norman, incredibly, hugely experienced, sat there shouting, stop it, stop being a naughty elephant, banging the side of the car, threw his hat, and then she moved off behind the vehicle. And we spoke about that displacement behavior when an elephant's still trying to keep an eye on you, but sort of walks away from you to try and create distance, but still watching you. And for some reason, I think the guest or something on the back seat moved or made a noise, and as she got behind them, she came right in and she put her one tusk through the back tailgate, and the other tusk was actually sort of under the tow bar, and she lifted the whole back of the vehicle with 6 people behind Norman. Norman immediately started the car, and luckily her tusk broke, and as Norman hit the ground, he sped off. We were in camp for all of this, and everyone was a bit shook up that morning. There was quite a lot of whiskey in the coffee, and rescue remedy, for those of you who use homeopathic medicine, my mother was out dosing people with rescue remedy. I'm not even joking. My mother still tries to dose me with rescue remedy. And they didn't speak very much English, so before they went out on the afternoon game drive, we had 6 Italians who couldn't speak any English going, no elefante, no elefante, no elefante, which in the Quando concession and in the dry season is near impossible. As I said, you literally cannot drive 100 meters without being in sight of a herd of elephants somewhere. But there's lots of stories like that, but I'm sure we'll get to some more of them at a later stage. So we're on Drakensbergen now. We are heading south. I am still constantly checking for any sign of leopard tracks or anything, and we are going to keep going. Thanks very much to Jody, one of our Zoomies, and Roger from Wisconsin, who've given me a helping trunk with that. How much can an elephant lift in this trunk? It's about 600 pounds, 270 kilograms. Thanks very much for that, guys, and that's an incredible weight if you think about it. And I almost think they might possibly be able to lift a bit more, especially one of these big Kruger bulls. But thanks very much for that. I really do appreciate all your help. For those of you who are new and might be just tuning in, we are live and we are interactive, so you are able to ask us questions about what we're seeing or what we've done and all sorts of stuff about the bush, and you can do that by emailing us questions at WildEarthTV, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Thank you very much, Diane from Michigan. I was confused whether it was phalanges or tarsals, or metatarsals, but it looks like with an elephant is phalanges, or phalanges, fingers and toes. Thanks very much for checking up on me there, and thanks to everyone who's gone and got a shot of the structure of an elephant's foot and popped it on Twitter. We really do appreciate it. I wish I did have a picture to show you, but this is the next best thing, so you guys can have a nice in-depth look at that fascinating structure in an elephant's foot. So we're now going to head south towards the southern boundary and maybe pop in around the Twin Dams area to see if there's possibly any tracks. I don't think anyone's checked in that area yet. So I know we've been chatting quite a bit about phobias, and I attempted the Zambian ogophobia word, and Shanae is wondering, do I think any animals possibly have phobias? I would think almost all of the prey species, specifically impalas and things like that, have lion, leopard, wild dog, cheetah, hyena phobias. I think possibly lion phobia being quite high and leopard phobia as well, but I don't think it's in the same sort of unconventional or unrealistic way a lot of people have phobias about things. I think survival is the most important thing out here, and that was a question from Shanae. Thanks very much for that, Shanae. And now we're going to cross back to Commander Bond, the man who started on the phobias, and he's probably got a few hidden ones of his own.
Zambianoliongeotica logisticolophobia, the fear of small people, indeed the morbid fear. Once more, Zambianoliongeotica logisticolophobia. Thank you very much to Edward Portal for that. Welcome back to Wendy, everybody. I had to say that to you as the first thing I said because it will disappear from my mind almost immediately. Welcome back. I believe you've been looking at some Brobdingnagian pachyderms with Brent, and for those of you who don't know what that means, thank you very much to Alan for explaining that it means colossal, as from Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Was it Jonathan Swift? Someone called Swift. Anyway, we found a very beautiful golden-tailed woodpecker there, and that's basically what we were trying to show you. There's a little bit of a bird party going on here. There was some rattling testiculars shouting. There are some tits shouting, some southern black tits. There's the lovely sound of a weed eater going in the background. We're right next to Arathusa Lodge, so I think we're going to press on from the sound of the weed eater. And yes, here we go. Once more, I've lost it already. Zambianoliongeotica logisticolophobia. Thank you very much. And then, lovely from Alan in California, of course, you wanted to know, every time you join us, the elephants seem to go through a chronosynclastic infundibulum. I don't know what a chronosynclastic infundibulum is, but I do like the sound of it. Chronosynclastic infundibulum. Yes, I have no idea what that means either. Thank you very much for all these words. My tongue is painful after all the attempts that I've been making to say them. I believe you've been watching some elephants with Brent. Let's call them what they are, elephants, as opposed to Brobdingnagian pachyderms. And we have, I'm afraid, found not much. We have attempted to find where those lions went, but I'm afraid have been unsuccessful thus far, and the radio in these kind of atmospheric conditions is making things a little difficult in Arathusa, so we're going to head back across towards Djuma and Vuyatela and see what we can find there. Zambianoliongeotica. Apparently, through the nastiness of the cokies that Brian uses. So he's going to attempt to find some more sort of child-friendly cokies that he can use on his thumb, and in so doing the thumb will make more regular appearances. Until that stage, however, you will have fewer sightings of the thumb. Or morning, I mean, you are pretty early in British Columbia. Might actually be yesterday. I also think it's a little rough to say that anyone should have a morbid fear of me because of my height. I'm actually not that short. I'm 5'8", which is not enormous, but it is certainly not. Well, it's not midget-sized.
It's like 4'8".
He's not 4'8". Tom Cruise is 5'4". He's done all right. The other things we've seen while you've been away was some waterbuck. We did see 2 steenbok, and I just want to say something about the steenbok. It's quite interesting to me because they are, you'll read often that they are solitary, and I don't believe that to be the case. And I have read that they live in pairs, monogamous pairs, and the reason you don't see the pairs often together is that because they are short and small, the easiest way for them to avoid predation is to not be seen. And so they'll stay in visual contact with each other, but they'll hide away, just sort of away from each other, so that they are as unobvious as possible. Hello Brandy in Kansas, and while we're driving along in this fairly game-free environment at the moment, you want to know what is my scariest moment in the bush and what is my favorite moment in the bush. Scariest, various different times. Oh, there's an elephant. There's a Brobdingnagian pachyderm over there. You see the Brobdingnagian pachyderms, Brian?
I do.
I think we're just going to go off-road to have a closer look at the Brobdingnagian pachyderms. There's some Brobdingnagian pachyderms over there, everybody.
Marvelous.
Marvellous to see some Brobdingnagian pachyderms. I do love to see Brobdingnagian pachyderm. Brandy, while we're getting into the sighting, scariest moment? I had a leopard on the bonnet once, which was fairly unpleasant. There's been a couple of others, but not. I tend not to try and remember them too closely. I haven't had particularly scary elephant times. I'm just going to get into the sighting, and then we'll have a bit more of a discussion on it. But my most memorable moments have almost universally been on foot. Either with animals or just in wild spaces where, I don't know how to describe it, but where the energies just kind of align nicely and you can just feel a sense of immense peace. And those are the things that make me smile when I think back to sitting on a koppie or sitting in a huge tree in a forested area. Those are the things that make me smile the most. Nice herd of Brobdingnagian pachyderms here, quite a large one. And they're feeding just through the last of the greenery here. There's a cow there, she's looking very skinny. And she does look like she's lactating, so I suspect that the strains of the winter and the fact that she is having to feed a youngster are probably taking their toll. Her hips are sticking out, I've seen a few elephants like this now. I'm starting to see more and more of them as the dry season progresses. I think I'm just going to ease in there, Brian. Yeah, towards that elephant there. That pachyderm in front of us, of course, is not quite yet Brobdingnagian. Tiny little one there. A little bit nervous of us. I'm not sure why. Going to ease gently in here. Boy chaps, we just want to say hi. Haven't got us into a great position here. There's some pretty thick bush through there. Let's try these ones, Brian. I'm going to stop here briefly. There's a very little one there. Tiny little thing with its mum. And just standing close by, possibly feeling a little bit nervous in the wind, and possibly feeling a little bit nervous with us quite so close by. Tiny little baby. Beautiful little thing. You can see his trunk doesn't reach the ground, and that's because it's just too uncoordinated. He'll probably stand on it and do himself some damage. His mum. So we're just going to pop around the corner here. Don't be nervous. It's okay. Oh, very cross. Very cross. Don't be cross. The youngster there gave a very, very half-hearted shake of the head. Still trying to eat grass, you know. They really do far prefer to graze if they can. So while we were chatting along there and I was driving into the sighting, I said that my most favourite moments have been sort of sitting peacefully either in a tree in a sort of riverine area, or sitting on a rocky outcrop overlooking the Drakensberg with the sun going down, often with some friends, or sometimes alone. And those are the sort of memories that make me smile, as I said, Brandy. And in terms of scary moments, you know, I try to, well, I don't forget them, but mostly the scary moments we have out here are because we've made an ill-advised judgment on how close we should get to animals, or we haven't been aware enough and we've stumbled upon animals. I mean, it's certainly not impossible that you can create a situation where totally inadvertently, where you threaten an animal to the extent that it feels the need to charge you or chase you. But I don't remember those I don't have those memories my mind with a great sense of fondness, because it normally means that I've done something wrong and that I've threatened an animal to the extent that it feels the need to chase me. And there have been one or two times where it's been pretty scary having, say, an elephant come herring out of the bush at you at full charge with 6 people on the back of the Land Rover. And that's pretty scary, but it's, yeah, they're not sort of memories that I like to relive too often, simply because that's not what the bush is to me. It's not a big scary place. It's a place of much more of peace for me. That is a wonderful scene. Thank you for that, Mr. Elephant. And I suppose if you ever wanted to, I mean, the big advantage of being in a wild place like this with, you know, the number of big animals that we have here is that I mean, there are lots of wilderness areas around the world where you can go and you can enjoy yourself and you can get that sense of wilderness that a place like this transfers. Here there's always just a little bit of an edge to it, because there are animals that are potentially dangerous. There are elephants, there are lions, there are leopards, there are buffalo around. So it just makes you that much more aware, and I think that extra awareness when you're on foot especially just makes you that much more in tune to what's going on here, and perhaps you therefore get much more of a sense of the wilderness here. And perhaps that's the advantage for me of being in a place where there are big animals like this. We're going to just nip a little forward and see if we can't get another look. Sometimes, you know, it's good to test yourself, or I find it's good to test myself. When I go out into the bush, and I'll go alone, and I might push the boundaries a little bit. Nobody will know where I am. I might go and track something, see if I can find it, and if I can find it, well, that's great. But there's always a slight risk that nobody knows where you are, which is, I think, is quite important sometimes. There's some more elephants behind us, but I can just hear them. Alright, so Brent has succeeded again today. We'll go away from these brobdingnailian pachyderms to some less brobdingnailian ones. Well, they're not pachyderms at all. We'll head across to Brent now, where there is a herd of buffalo heading into Djuma. Marvelous. See you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. So that buffalo herd we heard about coming towards us from the Buffalo's Hook side has crossed, and we're now just to the north of the Buffalo's Hook waterhole with this big herd. I'm guessing, from what I can see, probably 300, 400 odd buffalo. And the Birmingham boys have been found to the north of us, and I am hoping that this herd of buffalo brings them south, and hopefully they come visit the sunset safari. A nice cool day like this, they could move quite a big distance, especially if they hear a big herd of buffalo like this. 5 male lions. A herd of buffalo is basically, the sound of a herd of buffalo is basically like if any of you have kids, you hear the ice cream truck going past the front of the house. Probably the same sort of reaction, jumping for joy and heading directly towards that sound. So always another nice thing to look out for when we are in these big herds of buffalo is a possibility of a yellow-billed oxpecker. So we will be keeping a check. So far I've only seen red-billed, and I think the last person to see a yellow-billed oxpecker was Mark on a kudu. I've seen them on zebra, and I've seen them on big herds of buffalo in the Sabi Sands never seen them on a kudu, but the buffalo start sort of mobile east a bit. So we're going to move forward a little bit, see if we can get up ahead and stop and let them engulf us. Oh, before we go, let's have a look. He's a funny looking chap. There's a bull with quite a distinct boss on him, and it does tend to give him quite a strange look on his face. There we go, he's turning towards us now. Almost looks like he's a bit dozy, though I'm sure he isn't. There we go, there's an oxpecker, red bull. Okay, let's move forward and have a look at the rest of this herd. We have been chatting about it a bit, how it seems that this time of the year lions have a lot more success in their buffalo hunting endeavors, and that is possibly because the buffalo do have to move quite big distances between water and food, and they will lose a little bit of condition, making them just that little bit less formidable as they are in the wet season when they've got lots of water and food around. It is nature there balancing itself out. So the winter dry months are generally a time of plenty for animals like lions, and the summer months a time of plenty for the herbivores. It looks like we are going to just sneak ahead of the herd now. Looks like the front runners are up ahead here. And there is a plethora of different birds taking advantage of a big herd of buffalo like this. Not only the oxpeckers that are feeding off the buffalo themselves, but we have some magpie shrikes, which we'll show you shortly, fork-tailed drongos, hornbills, franklin, all feeding off the insects that are being disturbed by this big herd of buffalo. Hello, flows. We're going to try to position ourselves smack bang in the middle, and hopefully we get engulfed by this herd. Oh, sorry buffalo, noisy stick. Here we go. So I'm going to grab my binos quickly, and we're going to have a quick peruse for a possible yellow-billed oxpecker. So there's quite a few oxpeckers around. Wow, Andrew, just quickly, that buffalo in front of us has got a very strange deformity on the horn. He's walking away now, but his right-hand horn seems to have developed a lot bigger than his left-hand horn. I will try to get another view of him. You can see. Oh, where's he gone now?
I got him on the screen, I think.
Has he still got his back to us? I don't think that's him. Oh no, there. Yes, at the back. You can just see over that buffalo's back. There's the one horn seems to have been developed. Quite interesting. I have seen that before, but not very often. I'm going to try just sneak a little bit further forward. I mean, there's always differences between the buffalo's horns. There he is, and he's got him. See how thick the one side is. I think he's a bit self-conscious about that. I'm just going to move slowly a little bit further, see if we can catch another glimpse of that strange buffalo bull. No, I don't think we're there. We'll just see if he pops up again. Don't want to chase them. Oh, there's quite a lot of interesting buffalo in this, and you can see different ages and males and females, and quite nice to have a look at the different horn structures. And no buffalo has the same horn. Just a quick update on the oxpeckers from Edward. Apparently Scott has seen a yellow-billed quite recently. It must have been while I was on leave.
Yeah, I was with them. It was on a buffalo herd.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Andrew says he was with it. Look at this cow here. She's also got quite an interesting boss for a cow. Quite an old cow, judging from her. She's, she's just behind that branch. Wait for her to turn her head back towards us. There we go. Very gnarled, especially for a cow. Very bumpy. But she is quite old, and she's definitely been scratching that against some trees by the looks of things. Probably got an itch behind her ear, and you can see that sort of yellow build-up on the edge there, and that's from them trying to get a branch between their ear and their horn to rub away possibly some ticks, other parasites. I'm keeping my eye out for that buffalo with the very strange horns, as well as still checking for yellow-billed oxpeckers. So far I've only seen red-billed. Then we have a Birchall starling who's also taking advantage of all the insects disturbed by a big herd of buffalo. And we've got lots of fork-tailed drongos. I love that sound. A little buffalo argument somewhere. Nice big cow in front of us there. I really would like to see that bull again with that very overdeveloped right side. I'm going to try a bit of displacement behavior of our own by driving away from an angle like we see the elephants do to us, to try see if we can look back and possibly see that very interesting young bull. We've been chatting about all these different birds that are taking advantage of the insects disturbed by this big buffalo herd. We see our moving really slowly like this. We happen to get in a little bit closer, and that bull with the funny horn moved in there. But Diana was just wondering whether, because of all the increased bird species that are coming in to feed off the insects, are there any raptors or birds of prey? There he is, Andrew. Nice, there we go. Now you can see, Dana, sorry, I'll get back to your question in a second, but I'm just worried we might not get another view of him. So it almost looks like his body is sending almost all the growth to the right-hand side of that horn, and that could definitely possibly become a problem. I also wonder if there's possibly an abscess under there. I can't see clearly now. He is behind other buffalo, but we will try to keep a look on him. Hopefully he does come out into the open a little bit. So Diana, back to your question. Not to my knowledge, I haven't ever seen raptors sort of follow the birds that are following the buffalo herds. I think a lot of these birds are quite fast moving and be quite difficult for a raptor to take advantage of. But in terms of carnivores following buffalo herds, lions are great at following, at buffalo herds. So this Birchall's starling's just landed just off the bonnet. He's taking advantage of the insects disturbed by our car. Try see if I can spot that bull again. Very interesting. Definitely going to have to ask around or do some research about that, and hopefully you guys, if any of you guys manage to get a screenshot of that, please tweet it so I can have a proper look at it after drive. And remember, you can also email it to us, and the email address is questions@wildearth.tv, and the Twitter handle is #SafariLive. So cold, windy day like today, they're quite close to water. I've got a strong suspicion that they're going to bed down and chew the cud in this area. There he is again, Andrew. Come back through that gap. There we go. Unfortunately, he is behind the branch. He seems to be quite self-conscious, but there you can see very distinctly that, oh, excuse me, not looking at you. There we go. That right-hand horn is severely overdeveloped in comparison to the left. Hopefully that other buffalo moves out of the way shortly. I'll keep an eye on that, but Andrew, look at this cow having a good scratch here. I mean, she's got that right between her legs and having a really good scratch. And this is one of the methods that a lot of animals like buffalo will use to remove ticks, by friction. I'm quite sure, I know after being itchy, there's nothing better sometimes than a good scratch. And if we can zoom in that gap on her back leg when we get a chance, Andrew, you can actually see all the ticks sticking off there, and that's what she's trying to get off, as little blood suckers. They're obviously causing her quite a bit of irritation rather than discomfort, so she's trying to scratch them off, and I'm quite sure that feels quite wonderful. So, just waiting for that guy. Hello, old lady. You can see she's very old. If we go to her bottom, you can see how the skin is starting to sag into her hips. She's starting to get quite a few of those bald spots like we see on the buffalo bulls. Still in quite good condition for an old lady, but she looks like she wants to go use the same scratching post. She did get chased away by that other cow who was using it originally. Yep. Oh, so that tree is obviously a popular spot. Let's see, is she going to pop her leg over? There we go. Going to scratch the same area as the other one. And there we can see all those ticks on the inside. Just going to try remove a few of them. Oh, big stretch. I mean, we must consider how lucky we are to have such dexterous hands. Imagine having all those ticks or other parasites on you and not being able to get at them or scratch them or remove them, and having to rely on a slightly bent bush willow to do your scratching. There we go. You can see how there's a bit of mud and smoothness on there now from those two buffalo utilizing that as a scratching post. So buffalo are predominantly grazers, and so much more than 80% will be made up of grass. But during this time of the year, they do sometimes eat leaves, and I have seen them eating off these apple leaves, these small little bushes there that are right just parallel to us that the buffalo just walk past. And further north, they feed off mapanis quite frequently.
bush, which I've mentioned before. That is the guinea fowl, and francolins, they also like them. And normally they hunt in pairs, one of them sort of circling high up, arresting the attention of the potential prey, and the other one coming in from low down and smashing whatever it is that they eat, and then they go off and they eat it together. And I don't know where this one's friend is. In fact, I saw an African hawk eagle in this area. I've seen one a few times, but only one of them. So perhaps this one doesn't have a mate yet. It might be just an adult, not quite into the full flush of adulthood, and maybe that's why. Anyway, that's what that is, an African hawk eagle, and you'll find quite a few raptors this time of the day sitting in the trees rather than flying around, because they are heavy birds. The air is cold and it's blustery, and although it's quite magnificent, well, Brian and I are really enjoying it. The big raptors don't necessarily like it because it's not excellent for them to be flying in. Anyway, thank you very much for your contributions today. Wonderful, huge words that all of you have sent through. They're all flushing around in my head so much now that I'm unable to remember any of them. I think, what was the fear of long words? Hippo monstro sesquidae. Yeah, the hippo monstro sesquidaleophobia. Take that one, whoever sent that through. So that's the fear of long words, and I now have hippo monstro sesquidaleophobia. I have that now. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful morning. Quite quiet, but just a lovely atmosphere around the place, a bit eerie, which I quite enjoy, and Brian certainly has enjoyed it. So thank you to Brian on camera, thank you to Tara and Jessica in the final control. It's been a lovely morning, and I'm going to leave you. There's Brian's thumb coming up, and we're going to leave you. We'll pan back onto this lovely African hawk eagle and send you back to the huge herd of buffalo, which sounds wonderful, with my old friend Brent. Thank you, and we'll see you this afternoon.
So welcome back, everyone. Just trying to see if we can find one of those yellow-billed oxpeckers in that group. Unfortunately, we didn't get another view of that funny shaped bull, and hopefully you guys got some screenshots, and please put them up on Twitter with the hashtag Safari Live, so we can have a look at it later and try to figure out what's going on. If not sure, I want to see if there's maybe possibly an abscess. I didn't have a chance to have a really good look. He kept ducking behind the other buffalo. But it's been such a fantastic sunrise. Safari, as I said, might be grey but never dreary. We have unfortunately not been able to find any of the cats, but we did have a really nice elephant sighting, and always amazing to spend some time with a nice big herd of buffalo. So great to be out here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, and thanks again for joining us. We really do appreciate all the questions and comments you guys give us, and thanks for helping me out today with that elephant question on how many kilograms can an elephant's trunk lift, and that was really appreciated. So nice to sit with the buffalo. Hopefully these buffalo are going to draw those Birmingham males down to the south. They are just to the north of us, so fingers crossed that possibly on the sunset safari or later on in the night for tomorrow's sunrise safari, that those Birmingham boys come marauding down south. And as I said, a buffalo herd is almost like an ice cream truck to a kid to a male lion, so hopefully they are going to come and try follow up on these. But it has been great being with you. Andrew and I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and hopefully the weather will warm up, and that's just from my personal capacity. I don't really like being cold, and it hasn't really warmed up at all this morning. But again, thanks for joining us. It really is a privilege to be able to spend so much time with you guys and share our passion for the African bush with you. So for the last few minutes and seconds of drive, I'm going to stop gabbing and let you look at this wonderful herd of buffalo.